It's the Human First Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Montague at Avenue 9. My guest this week is Eric Eden at Workverse. He is also the host of the Remarkable Marketing Podcast. And it is remarkable. Since you're watching or listening to a podcast right now, go check that one out. And Eric, you have worked for a long time at an event company as their chief marketing officer or a VP of marketing, and your chief marketing officer for a business networking platform now. I imagine that the human first, mission here is something that you resonate, that you don't think this will all be AI and automated as we go through. Can you tell me about kind of what you've learned throughout your career?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Michael. Great to be here. I have become a super AI nerd, but I have done a lot of in-person marketing at events and business networking. And I think that's still going to be an important part of the formula. And I think having a human in the loop is going to be very important, even as AI infiltrates almost every process in business that we have today. And
can you tell me more about the magic of networking? Like, what is it about the human connections that's so valuable in business?
Well, I think one of the first things that's valuable about it is that a lot of the sites out there today, like LinkedIn and other social media sites, are overrun by bots, which creates a very weird user experience. If it's you and 100 million fake accounts, it's a very sort of awkward situation. So I think people can tell that all of these sites are overrun by bots, and that posts and comments on those posts and jobs are all like fake posts created by AI. Everybody can tell. And I think the one cautionary thing is people have to be thoughtful about not getting whitewashed, or I like to say beigified by AI, because it really takes out all the human aspects of our stories, our personal stories and experiences. And so I think whether someone is networking or doing a job search or just conducting, business with their company, you have to be thoughtful about not getting beigified by the AI.
Yeah, I think that's fair. There's also this, we've talked about it on the podcast before, but it's one of my favorite topics. Like, when you're looking at all these robots, you can get misled by what's important. And you're thinking, oh, well, this person is going viral. This must be, what I need to do too. And those people are not going viral. They just have a bunch of robots liking them. They're not, no actual humans are involved in the following or the virality of that content. It can really throw people off when they see large numbers or these kind of what I call dumb metrics, like follower count or likes on a post. And those can all be fake. So it really throws people off.
Yeah, I mean, especially there's been a lot of hoopla over TikTok potentially getting banned, and it still might get banned. But the one thing that I talk to a lot of other marketers about is most of the numbers you see in terms of how many people are viewing videos and liking videos are fake. Those numbers are highly inflated, and a lot of marketers will tell you, especially when it comes to TikTok, that, okay, even if you get 1 million views and you don't get any sales, that's a good hint that the numbers are fake. They're like bots that are inflating the numbers for the purpose of getting more advertising dollars. Like, that's the evil behind it, is the advertising is the reason why on all the social sites they're making billions of dollars in advertising. So they just want to pump up the numbers with fake stuff. And that's the reason they allow it to continue. The technology to not have these sites overrun with fake AI bots is there. It's not hard. They just don't want to do it because it's against the nature of advertising, right?
Yeah, I think it's that. And then there's also just the, what I was going towards, which is larger companies and like the media believe the same thing. They go, oh, well, this person has 1 million followers on TikTok. TikTok must be popular. And that's where all the kids are. And they start feeding into this myth that was all fake in the, from the start, or at least largely inflated. So I think that's cool. I think it's cool what you're doing with the podcast and Workverse about sort of a next generation of what a social network looks like, and how do we actually engage with real humans, develop our personal brand and stuff in a way that we want to show up and represent. I think one of the reasons I've never done TikTok, although I think I do post some of the shorts over there, but I've never logged into the app, is that it's not how I want to show up. I really enjoy longer conversations with actual humans, and 60 seconds of flashing lights doesn't really do it for me. Can you tell me a little bit about Workverse and what you're hoping to accomplish there, or what the value is for people?
Yeah, absolutely. So the main thesis behind Workverse is around what we're talking about, in that we don't want to have an advertising model because that invites a lot of this bad behavior, including privacy issues and bots, and it's just a mess. Like, so many people have even given up on the existing social platforms because it's just spam and fraud and bots. It's terrible. And a lot of people are like, I just don't have time or energy or desire to be there. So with Workverse, we're like, okay, let's create a space that is every person, every company on it is real and verified, no bots, no advertising, and therefore there's no spam, there's no fraud, because once you verify people, and again, the technology is very easy to do that. It literally takes 1 minute. People take a selfie, they take a picture of their ID, and they're verified. It's not hard. Like banks don't have 100 million fake accounts created per year. Like they don't. I mean, it's not possible. So we're creating a different experience. And I think the other piece of it is that around personal branding, building your personal brand and building your company brand is, aside from the bots, even when you're focusing on real people, it is hard to sort of stand out from the competition today. I would say the search engines are very saturated. There's billions and billions of pages of content. So how do you stand out? Like, what is unique about you personally, as a marketer or a founder, an entrepreneur, that would make people want to do business with you and your company? And so we've set out to help people create these great brand profiles that really highlight, in a next generation way, the best moments of their career and their company. And so we do things like people can embed their podcast and their YouTube channel. And if they're a book, they can highlight the book they've written. If they're throwing events, they can highlight the in-person events on their brand page. And then we have like an events directory where people can go and not only promote the events that they're holding, but they can find out what events they want to attend and sponsor. And so this sort of next generation experience is important, because if you go to sites today like LinkedIn, they don't want you to really promote your podcast. If you put a link in a post to a podcast or to YouTube, they penalize you because you're linking away from the site, which is sort of counterintuitive when people like us are spending so much time, money, effort, like trying to build our podcast and our YouTube channels. Like, that's crazy. People write a book. They spend a year writing a book, and there's no way to really feature that you're an author on your LinkedIn profile. That's coconuts. So, I think we just want to help people really highlight, the best moments of their career so that they can stand out. I think making it very sort of, you can upload videos to your profile and pictures and embed your podcast and your YouTube channel and other videos, is a sort of rich multimedia way to do it. And what I've done, like with my profile, I'll give this example, is when I was at CVent and we went public on the New York Stock Exchange and the management team got to ring the opening bell. That was a pretty big moment in my career that we worked 10 years for, right? And so, I'm proud of that. And I put that on my profile. And when people see that picture and they talk to me about it, they're like, wow, that is pretty awesome, right? And so I just highlight that that's really what we're about helping people do, because that's what helps people take their career to the next level, help their company win more opportunities. And that's what we're trying to help people do.
Well, yeah, I think that's one of the reasons that I was excited to talk to you, is that there's different ways of building value. So, the human first concept here is that, like, you can build value by facilitating these human connections and actually getting people off of your site. So at Workverse, you kind of take the position that, you know, our job is to bring value to your network and to get you offline and get you meeting people in real person or in real life and having conversations and doing business. And that's where your members get value out of the platform. On LinkedIn, it's the opposite. They're selling to advertisers and sponsors and recruiters who want more people on the platform. And they're all about keeping you there, not giving you any kind of value. There's no value for the end user at this point. And there's no way to, like you said, build an audience for a podcast or an external blog link, anything you want to, you know, book, you want to send stuff to. So I think
if you're a creator,
really
if you're a creator, you want to do that. I mean, there's 200 million creators out there today, right? And they spend a lot of time, money, and effort creating these great assets. And it's really sort of a hack to try to highlight those things on any social media today, really. Like you're sort of trying to play by their rules and get it in there and not get penalized. It's very weird.
God forbid you post a YouTube link into LinkedIn, you know, they just cancel each other and don't let you go. It pops up alerts like, are you sure you really want to leave LinkedIn to go watch this video? It's ridiculous.
And I have to say something about the scale of this, because it's just, this will blow your mind. This stat is that LinkedIn says they have 1 billion users, right? Mm-hmm. And they've been working on that for 20 plus years. But when you look at it, only 5% of those billion users actually pay. So 95% of those billion people, so 950 million accounts, are free accounts that are not paid. Almost none of them post anything there. They're inactive. They're bots if they do post anything. And it's just like hundreds of millions of fake accounts. It reminds me of that scene in The Matrix where it's just like Nemo's like, there's too many. I can't.
All the agents popping up.
All the machines coming after you. It's like that for a lot of people these days. It's like the scale of hundreds of millions of fake accounts just is ponderous. Like, so
I want to switch and talk to you about how we use AI, you know, correctly in a human first way, because I think, you know, we're aligned on this too, is that we're fans of tech. We've been in internet marketing for a long time. Like, we love automations. We love making cool things. We love AI tools that make our job easier. In your opinion, what is the right way to engage? I think you mentioned you use over 25 different AI tools on a regular basis. What are some of your favorite ways to bring value in an authentic way, rather than just creating these matrix agents to go try and you know, chase down attention on every platform?
So broadly, I would say, as a marketer and an entrepreneur, that I can do 5 times the amount of work using the 25 AI tools that I do. And I think that a lot of people today have just used the most popular tool, ChatGPT, and most people have just tried the free version. And that's okay. This is brand new, right? But there are a lot of really great tools out there. There are a lot of really specific use case tools that can help people be 5 times more efficient directionally. Like, I'll give one quick example. Is like with my podcast, I can produce a podcast episode, everything from booking people to recording the episodes to promoting it, and do an episode in less than 2 hours. And that typically used to take people, if they didn't have a lot of the AI tools that I use, it would take like 10 hours. And then people just give up on podcasting because it's just too much work, right? But if you can get through an episode in 2 hours from start to finish, everything you need to do, that's how I was able to do 200 episodes in 1 year by myself with no helpers. And so I use great AI tools like Buzzsprout, which you know, does AI show notes and shoots it out to all the different directories like Apple and Spotify. I use Descript to do all my editing, so I can edit things super fast. I can create clips super fast. And those things just took a lot of time before, like hours and hours and hours to like edit and manually like come up with show notes and transcripts and then promotional materials. Like it just is a lot if you don't have the right tools. I think that some of the main tools, the 4 different LLMs, I actually encourage people to use all of them for their marketing work because they're very different. So they do different things better. So I use ChatGPT, I use Claude, I use Google's Gemini for things like deep research. I use Perplexity for searches because it's really optimized for that. And on top of this, there's a lot of really great individual tools. And the real art today for people is how do you use all these tools together? How do you connect them? I think this is the moment we're at right now is how do you bring it all together? And there's great tools that people are doing things like Zapier and make.com. And I'm really excited about some of the sort of idea to app or idea to website tools out there like Cursor, where you can just use like ChatGPT as your product manager to come up with a product spec, and you feed that text into a tool like Cursor, and it'll build an entire functional website or app for you. And it's just mind blowing. You can do that with no code, and you just sit there and watch it generate the code for the website, and you could do integrations and e-commerce and all these things. It's just mind blowing. It's how Cursor got to like $100 million in revenue in less than 2 years in ARR. It's crazy.
The speed at which some of these are taking off are insane, but also the speed that they get replicated by other platforms, like the deep research thing you mentioned. 2 weeks later, ChatGPT comes out with their own deep research one, and you're like, wow, that was fast. Like they're using AI programming to build their own apps and stuff in too. And so I think it's really getting fascinating for entrepreneurs of like, you have to have a killer idea and you have to be able to execute on it fast because the world is just speeding up at an exponential pace. Like you said, I think it's really such a game changer that it blows people's minds that they really don't think that if you were doing 5 days of work in one, that's a lot. And so you either need to do 5 times as much, or you need to think about completely what to do with your time for those other 4 days, and how can you be more strategic or make a different kind of impact, or just relax and go to the beach. What do you think, Gary?
I mean, marketing consulting projects that I do for venture-backed and private equity-backed companies, some of these projects used to take a month or two to do, where you had to do a lot of heavy lifting, like a rebranding project and a messaging positioning project. These things would take a lot of time. Like projects like that used to take 2 months, I can do in like 2 weeks. It's crazy, how efficient you can be if you really lean into these tools and leverage them the right way. One of the things that I like to tell people is you have to think about the human aspect of this is you have to think about using these AI tools like you're a movie director. So if you give crappy direction, you're going to get crappy results. And the movie director analogy is perfect because when you think about the great movies that have been produced in the last 20, 30 years, they had great directors who could bring together all these things and give very specific direction to actors and cinematographers and audio and special effects and the script. And there's so many variables that go into that, but they gave such specific, great direction. And if you can do that with AI tools, then you're going to get great results. But most people try to do this weird stuff where they're like, let me test the AI. I'm going to be really vague and I'm just going to see what I can figure out.
Well, I think they don't think strategically enough. I'm kind of working on a book for AI strategy because I think people really aren't great at thinking it through. They had way more time. So one, we used to have, like you said, 2 months to figure it out, and we could think about it and roll it around and get more specific. Or you try something and it doesn't work, or you try to pass it off to a human assistant and they go, I don't know what you want me to do here. And they clarify with you, and right. And you have tons of meetings and weekly stand-ups and all this kind of stuff. And that now if all that work is done in one swing, you have to answer all those questions still, right? Otherwise,
Right.
the AI doesn't know what to give you. So one of my favorite prompts is at the end of what I ask for, just saying, ask me any questions you need to know in order to be at least 80% sure that you can accomplish this correctly. And ChatGPT will come back and say, well, tell me who your audience is, what your positioning you're trying to do is, and whatever else it needs to know. I answer those, and then it does the task. And you're like, okay, that one extra step maybe costs 5 minutes, but it used to cost, 5 weeks. And now I get a much better output.
I like
From
that. I like
you
that a
have to
lot.
do all that thinking.
And one of the things related to that I do is after I give what I think is good direction and ChatGPT gives me output, I always like immediately go back to it and just say, I want you to make it better. And so, I think in marketing over the years, like you do five to seven drafts of anything to get it to be really great. And you just do that using the AI and you give it some direction of, okay, I want you to make it better in this way. And I want you to
Yeah.
make it better by thinking about these things. And if you do that and you go back with a number of iterations, and sometimes I'll take stuff that ChatGPT has done and I'll give it to Claude and I'll say, I want you to make this better. And then like the different LLMs will make it better in different ways.
It's
And
kind of
so
fascinating that it actually works, but if you go to ChatGPT and say, I want you to write my image prompt to create a image for this blog post that you just wrote, it will write a great one. You can copy that and take it to Gamma or another image tool, Midjourney or something, and paste it in there, and it gets better than if you had done the prompt yourself, or if it runs its own prompt, which is really fascinating to me. So they do kind of work better when you cross pollinate a little bit.
yeah, 100%. This is the key, is the intersection of these tools. So I actually created a document that's like, here's how to use Midjourney. And I gave that to ChatGPT. So whenever I need a Midjourney prompt, I'm in an image, I'm like, you are a Midjourney expert, and here is all the training on it. I want you to use this Midjourney training, and I want you to give me the 4-paragraph prompt because it's going to write it better than I would. And once you've trained it with like the 6 or 7 page guide on Midjourney, it'll give you a great prompt. And similarly, I will sometimes take a written output from ChatGPT and I will give it to Claude and say, I want you to create an infographic for this. And it'll do a great job with that. And so I see some people doing things like this with like, they use ChatGPT with Canva to create images and different other AI capabilities, because the AI capabilities in Canva have gotten really good. And a lot of people are saying, okay, how can I like automate this by using Zapier and Make to move the stuff between them? And I'm a big fan of Replit, which competes with Cursor, and you can actually they have what they call like a super developer agent within it. And you can just start telling it like, I need you to hook in ChatGPT. I need you to hook into the website. I need you to hook in Calendly to the website. I need you to hook in Stripe payments to the website. And so you can see how it starts then pulling in other tools that have AI capabilities. And that is what agents are really all about. It's like beyond the buzzword of an agent, you're really pooling together multiple AI tools at once for maximum effect. And this is where it gets super interesting.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think what I'm hearing from you too is this push to be better is the human drive that makes it all work there, right? When you can say, make it better, make it shorter, make it more detailed, make it higher level, more strategic, make it work with Midjourney, make it work with something else. Like these are all of the things that I think are the nuanced context that we see as professional marketers that bring value versus, somebody who's never done it before that is going to say, okay, ChatGPT, write me a marketing plan for my local plumbing business. They're not going to get anywhere close to the same results. And I think for marketers, that really talks to the value of our long-term career, that there are skills and ways of thinking that we've developed over the last 20, 25 years.
Absolutely. And I think in addition to merging together tools, like back to the giving good direction, it comes down to how good you are in crafting the prompts to give good direction. And some of my favorite things is I often will tell ChatGPT, this is super important. My whole job depends on this output. And then you will get a +1, right? Like, I'm going to get fired if this isn't done right. And it will give you a +1 and try a little bit harder. And then other optimizations are like things like you give a very specific direction. And then at the end, you know how ChatGPT sometimes will go on with all this like blah, 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 blah stuff that's not really that relevant. So I
Yeah.
add almost every prompt, no yapping. And it works. No yapping. I don't need to hear like your blah, 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 like
No extra
disclaimers.
yapping at the end. Yeah. And always these questions. It is fascinating how it works, but some of them are definitely a little extra that you don't need. But you can turn those off when you do the pro version. You mentioned a lot of people are still using the free. When you upgrade to plus there for $20 a month, you get to be able to create your own chat GPT and tell it exactly what you want. Like, don't use the word delve and in a world of AI and stuff, and tell it not to ask me extra bonus questions or yeah. So that's great.
I think the numbers were that there's 300 million weekly users of ChatGPT, and there's only 17 million people that are paying for it. So that gives you at least $20 a month. So that gives you like an idea. Like, most people aren't paying, but when most people aren't paying, you're missing out on a lot of the capabilities, like what you just said. But also, you can't really leverage things like GPTs or a lot of the other advanced functionalities that they're releasing at a pretty rapid pace, like the agents. And they're now starting to put some
the
of
Canvas,
the
documents and the deep research, all that stuff is very cool. Agents now, too. It's awesome.
So I applaud people getting started, and everybody doesn't have a use case for like the $200 a month. That starts to get pretty expensive. And I think a lot of people have some fatigue around every AI tool is charging like $20 a month, and it starts to add up, and you're like, I'm spending like hundreds of dollars a month on all these tools. So you have to be thoughtful about overlap between tools and what you really need and what you don't need. I think that's another human piece of it, is like, it's easy
We're
to
paying
sort of get
$100 a
carried.
month for one app with the Adobe Creative Cloud before 2 years ago and stuff. Now most of us probably still are too anyway. But how do you think this all plays out? So if you fast forward at least 5 years, it's 2030. Are all good marketers overwhelmed by these AI robots and spam? And does this finally break the system, or do we find a way to balance and fight back? Do we all just go back to hand selling? How do you think it plays out?
I think it's going to be a much bigger impact than people realize. I think AI is going to impact almost every process in business. Every process within marketing, I think, will have impacts. And I think that it will replace a lot of roles that shouldn't have been jobs in the first place, because they're like data entry, or they're just repetitive sort of things that could be automated. And I think the key for people to really do well 5 years from now is to become as much like a movie director as they can for marketing using AI, because there is always going to be a role for a director to say, here's what needs to happen, and to pull together the right tools and to give the right direction. That will be there in 5 years. But I think people are going to be surprised. I lean into and agree with some of the analysis around that they say $7 trillion a year of work will be automated with AI across the different business functions. I think that number is probably right. And that's why they're investing hundreds of billions of dollars in AI, is because they believe it's true. I also believe that, as an example of how big this is, instead of software SaaS being a $5 trillion space, I think that shrinks to 500 billion. I don't think it goes to zero, but I think it shrinks to 500 billion. And I think that a lot of the software that people were buying gets replaced by AI, because people don't want to buy software and then do things with the software. They just want the AI to do the things for them. that's why Salesforce and Workday and other people are like laying off a lot of people, is like people don't want to buy software licenses anymore. They just want to like license the AI and it can do it for them. It's a very different thing. It's definitely a next level different thing. So when you think
That
about
seems
things like
interesting.
that,
Yeah, I think it's probably a spectrum again, right? That there will be people that can create really cool tools and apps, and you're like, you know what, this is the best, you know, X that I've ever seen, so I want to pay for this app to do that, or a specialty stuff. But it's interesting to think about most of those, like I think bad apps that have been around for a long time. I don't want to name any, but there's definitely some for expenses or accounting and things that have they've been around for 30 years. They were the originals, but they're not doing a particularly good job at it, and it's not unique functionality or creative. They just kind of have infrastructure. I think those could get wiped out easily because those features are easily reproducible, right?
yeah, I think a lot of companies, I'll pick on Salesforce just because they've been very vocal about this. And they've said, as an example, I've been at companies where the management team just sat there and said, why are we spending $1 million a year on Salesforce licenses? It's
Right.
$1,500 per sales rep or per user. Like, why are we doing that? Like, when you think about the cost of giving an AI agent instead of a CRM license to staff, I think people will pick the AI agents. That's why Salesforce is probably going to move their pricing to, I think they've said they're actually going to change it from seat licenses per user after doing that for 20 years to you pay for the number of processes you automate with their AI. That is a mind-blowing shift after 20 years of SaaS for Salesforce. Is the bellwether of SaaS stocks.
Wow. Yeah, that's fascinating. All right, last one before I let you go is the fun one. If you go even further out in the future, like 30 years or whatever you would picture in our lifetime, which sci-fi movie do you think most represents what will happen, or which one do you hope is our future?
Well, I think that it's fascinating to me that Star Trek Next Generation really got this right 35 years ago. And
Yeah.
they really just nailed it with the way that you can just speak to the computer and it tells you whatever you need to know. It does things for you based on voice commands. And then they had Data, the human android, walking around, experiencing human feelings, but you know, definitely superhuman in every way, is like a key member of the crew. And so I think that it's fascinating that they saw this 35 years ago, and I think we will get to something very close to that. And I merged that a little bit with, I also am a big fan of Star Wars, and my favorite android character is C3PO because he used to say all these funny things like, "Oh no, we're doomed."
Yeah, right in the middle of stuff.
And then he was
Does
blasted
help,
into a million
C3PO.
pieces, and he had to be
Yeah.
put back together by Chewbacca. I think, that, but those droids walking around. I mean, like Elon is building, uh, you know,
Yeah.
are robots that we can have at our home that are very much like R2D2 and C3PO to do stuff around our house for us, right? He's saying he's going to be here in a year or two. I mean, in 30 years, I mean, we'll have a whole staff
Yeah,
of these.
probably more like Data than C3PO. Is still pretty jerky movement and not really great at communication, even though that's what it was designed for.
Right.
I'm with you. I think my ideal future would be next gen, and not just because I'm a bald captain, but because I think that's a great vision of like we found peace. Everybody has enough food. Like this is not there's not stuff worth fighting for. We realize what is worth fighting for is like freedom and life and the right to live it however you want, or the right for other beings to live it and stuff, which was really cool. I'm not entirely sure I would predict that outcome for us in our lifetimes, but I think maybe somewhere between that and like Minority Report advertising, or Back to the Future Part 2, where it's like popping up a bunch of spam and advertisements inside of that future.
Well, I'll end on this point because I do think from Star Trek, this is a very interesting analogy that I think will come true in 30 years is because they had things like food replicators that would just materialize food and they had the ability to just generate housing. The idea that we move away from being like this money-based society where you have to work for money and then money pays for food and money pays for your place to live, when you can just
Right.
replicate things and they're just built and you have someplace to live and you can just replicate your food, you probably don't need to have the same sort of money-based token society that we do today. And then it allows people to evolve to a different level of thinking. Some people say this will format in the sense of like universal based income. So everyone gets a certain amount of income. But a different way of saying that is you don't need the income, because if you don't have to spend money on where you live and you don't have to spend money on food, like your needs are met. So then it's just more academic of like, how do you spend your thought cycles every day, right? It's a fascinating thing to think about if that's possible.
Yeah, I like that. You convinced me a little bit there. There's not the need for the annoying advertisements and interruptive thing if we don't need money, or we don't need to buy things like that. And
if you can just go to the holodeck to go on vacation, you don't need to spend money.
I do think there's still value, and they even do that in next gen. We're really nerding out though. We got to wrap it up. Where they still go to the beach, the real beach. When you can teleport somewhere too, might as well go to a real beach than a fake one. But that's awesome. Thank you so much for the time, Eric. Great stuff. And before we let you go, tell us about what you have going on. You can connect with Eric Eden on LinkedIn. Check out the Remarkable Marketing Podcast. And Workverse is the company, a new business social networking platform there, a new way to do it. Next generation there as well, to keep with our theme. But how can you help us, or how can we help you, Eric?
Yeah, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. If people want to try out workverse.com, there's a promo code you can use to get a free account, a free subscription. Since we're just launching, I would love people to try it out. You can use the promo code GROW2025 to create a great personal brand site. Go there, try it out, and feel free to connect with me if there's any way I can be helpful. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. That sounds great. And I'm going to check that out as well. I was interested in your layouts and what you're doing there at Workverse. For Avenue 9, you can go to avenue9.com, connect with me, Mike Montague, on LinkedIn. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, share it with somebody that you think needs to hear it. At Avenue 9, we help people engage in their marketing in a way that's human first, whether that's with your employees or your community membership groups. Interact and build relationships and communicate better with the power of AI and marketing expertise. So until next time, good luck and keep going, everybody. Have some fun with it.